5, 4.
Good. Welcome to Municipality of Thames Centre regular council meeting, Monday, April 26, 2021, 5 p.m. Before I call the meeting to order, I just want to remind everybody on May 3rd, the 2021 census is here. As you know, this census data is critical to decision makers and Canadians from coast to coast. In addition to informing public policy, census data are vital for planning schools, hospitals, daycare centers, family services, public transportation, and skills training for employment. In addition, census data support numerous municipal programs related to infrastructure and public transportation and are used to measure Canada's sustainable development and environmental goals. Information from the 2021 census will be even more crucial because it will help your community evaluate the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and to better plan for the future. So don't be surprised if you, after May 3rd, start getting asked your opinion on the census. So be nice to the census takers and we'll get all kinds of information. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. Are there any additions to the agenda?
There's no additions.
Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor Patterson, you're muted.
Right, thank
Yeah.
you, Mayor. Item number 14.3, bylaw 29-2021. I have a conflict of interest with that.
Thank you. Councillor Heeman.
Item 14.3, bylaw 29 2021, the refreshment vehicles, so same as last time. Pecuniary conflict of interest at the business owned by my parents who conducts similar events, and then likewise, not that we conduct similar events, but items number 7.4 and 14.5, and then the bylaw 29. So sorry, item Z4/21 and bylaw 29-2021, pecuniary conflict of interest because the business owned by my parents conducts business with the applicant.
Okay, great. And no others?
Not that I'm aware of at this time.
All right. So moving on to announcements, and Deputy Mayor Elliott, did you have an announcement to make?
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship, I just wanted to announce the winners of the Thames Centre Cares cleanup contest. We had over 50 families participate with over, I think the final number right now is 92 kids who participated in cleaning up our community for Earth Day. So I did mail out all of the ice cream vouchers for the kids that participated, and the winner of the Autumn Blaze Maple Tree donated by Little Creek Tree Farm was Jessalyn Eddie Bean and her daughters Mackie and Emily, who cleaned up. And the gift card to Hemans that was donated by Mayor Warwick and I, the winner for that was Beth Jones and her daughter Leah. So I just want to thank everyone who participated and spent Earth Day cleaning up our community.
Yeah, it was really nice to see all the pictures of everybody cleaning up everything. So now we're going to move on to a public meeting, and I need a motion that council adjourn its regular meeting in order to sit as the Court of Revision under the Drainage Act to consider the Coleman Drain 2021. So looking for a mover. Councillor Heeman, seconded by Councillor Hunter. All in favor? Okay. So now I'm going to announce that the purpose of this hearing is to consider the assessment schedule for the Coleman Drain 2021, a report dated January 18th, 2021, as prepared by Spreed Associates. Only appeals related to the assessment schedule will be dealt with in the Court of Revision. And do I have, so it says here is no, do I have, is Travis on this one? Or just, oh, there he is, just popped up. Okay. Good afternoon, Travis.
Good afternoon, Your Worship. We have received no appeals that I'm aware of.
Okay. Any questions from the members of the Court of Revision? Seeing none, and then we're going to we don't have to deliberate because there's no assessment changed. So here is the recommendation that the Court of Revision, having met on behalf of the Coleman Drain 2021, with no appeals being submitted, does hereby adopt the drainage assessment schedule dated January 18th, 2021, as submitted by Spreed Associates. All right, so looking for a motion for that. Deputy Mayor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Hunter. All in favor? Great. So any landowners assessed who are not satisfied with the Court of Revision ruling may still appeal to the tribunal by submitting notification to the clerk. The final date for this appeal was provided with the Court of Revision mailing notice. So now I'm looking for a motion to adjourn that the Court of Revision be closed in order to sit as a Committee of Adjustment under the Planning Act. Councillor Heeman made, Deputy Mayor Elliott seconded. All in favor? Okay. So our first public hearing for minor variance is the applicant 1788051 Ontario Limited, care of John Matthews, the agent being Eng Plus Limited, care of Ving Tom. Property location is 100 The Parkway. And I'm going to ask our planning director to provide an overview of the application.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is an application that is seeking relief from the zoning bylaw to allow a reduction in the on-site parking requirement to facilitate the development of a commercial plaza. For this particular property, it's a vacant parcel of land located in the village of Dorchester on the north side of the Parkway, just east of Dorchester Road and behind the Tim Hortons. The commercial plaza proposed would be in the form of a 2-unit commercial building. And these lands in particular, they are designated general commercial under the official plan. And similarly, they're zoned for commercial purposes. So in terms of the building itself, it's approximately 4,700 square feet in size as proposed. And based on that floor area, the zoning would require at least 18 parking spaces, whereas the applicant is requesting 15 parking spaces. All other zoning regulations are capable of compliance, and the applicant has indicated that this reduction is necessary since he cannot provide the required on-site parking due to the width of the parcel and the access required around the proposed building. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, and I'm satisfied that the 4 tests under the Planning Act have been met. In terms of comments received from an agency standpoint, no issues were identified during the circulation of the application from the county engineer, the Conservation Authority, our Director of Public Works, our Drainage Superintendent, and our Chief Building Official. And also from the public, I have not received any comments from the public. So it's my recommendation, Your Worship, that the application be approved, subject to the reasons outlined in my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the applicant or the agent available?
No, Your Worship, there's no one in attendance.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members from the public in attendance who wish to provide comments?
No, there's not, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Any committee members have questions regarding the application? Nope, doesn't look like it. Don't see any hands up. So I'm going to ask the committee to make their decision on the application by resolution. Looking for a mover. Deputy Mayor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Okay, so I'm going to advise that the written notice of the decision will be forwarded to designated parties and that there's a 20-day appeal period. If you wish to be notified of the decision with respect to this application, you must submit a written request to the clerk. The clerk's email address is included on the online agenda. Okay, so moving on now to minor variance A721. And that the purpose of this hearing is to consider an application for a minor variance as submitted by the applicant, being Mark Root. The property location is 22618 Valley View Road. And Mr. Bancroft, I'm going to ask you to provide an overview of the application.
Your worship, Ms. Heddle is going to present this particular
Excellent.
report.
Thank you.
Apologies for the nameplate in front of Ms. Heddle. Of course, I can't be at two places at the same time, but she's using my login for purposes of attending this meeting. Thank you.
Perfect. I did wonder when I saw the name in front of it, and all of a sudden it didn't look like Mark anymore. So welcome, Abby, to the meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaws maximum height and front yard depth requirements to permit the construction of a building accessory to a residential use. The subject property is a residential lot located on the east side of Valley View Road, north of Center Drive, that contains a single detached dwelling. The lands are designated rural residential and protection area according to the Thames Center official plan and are zoned rural residential and environmental protection. The property is also situated in a regulated area subject to the Conservation Authorities Act, given the steep slopes and flood-prone nature of the lands due to their proximity to the Thames River. The applicant is proposing to construct an accessory building not exceeding 90 square meters in size with a height of 6.5 meters and with a front yard depth of 10 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum height of 5 meters for accessory buildings and a front yard depth of at least 25 meters. The building would comply with the 1.5 meter side yard requirement from the mutual lot line associated with the neighboring property to the south, being 22600 Valley View Road. The proposed building location is generally level terrain compared to the sloped balance of the property. The staff have evaluated the application against the 4 tests under the Planning Act and are satisfied that each test has been met, as we do not anticipate negative impacts to the adjacent lands resulting from a 15-meter reduction to the front yard setback and a height increase of 1.5 meters, given that visual impacts would be minimal as a result of the existing coniferous tree line along the frontage of the property. Staff are also satisfied that the proposal constitutes an appropriate use of the land, given that accessory buildings are permitted considering the main residential use. And further, staff are of the opinion that it is reasonable to allow for a reduced front yard setback to facilitate the construction of the accessory building, given the slopes associated with the Thames River to the rear of the property. In terms of agency comments received, the county engineer, public works department, drainage superintendent, and chief building official offered no comments or concerns. And subsequent to the preparation of this report, a letter was received from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority citing no objections. In terms of comments received from the public, a letter of objection was received from Dr. Raymond Yee and Mr. Todd Wharton of 22600 Valley View Road to express concern related to the size, height, and general aesthetic of the proposed structure. However, Dr. Yee and Mr. Wharton provided further correspondence stating that upon further consideration, it is trusted that the applicant will be diligent to ensure all aspects of the proposed project will be aesthetically appropriate for the surroundings and therefore do not oppose the requested variance. So it is a recommendation of staff, Your Worship, that the application be approved, subject to the reasons outlined in my report.
Thank you, Abby. Is the applicant available? Does he wish to speak?
Yes, Your Worship. I'm going to bring over the applicant, Mark Root.
Thank you.
So Mark, I'll just ask that you unmute yourself and start your video.
Aha.
There you are.
Figured it out.
Good afternoon, Mark.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Did you have any additional information you wanted to provide?
No, the only thing that I was noting is your drawings that you had a like a satellite view of the property. And if you look at the trees on the property, just to show some of the privacy that we have, that drawing, the drawing is about 15 years old.
Okay.
So the trees are there's all kinds of privacy here, but, and I just want to thank you for your consideration. That's all.
Great, thank you. And is there any members on the public in attendance who wish to provide comments?
No, there is not.
Okay. Any committee members have questions regarding the application? No, okay. So I'm going to ask the committee to make their decision on the application by resolution. Councillor Heeman moved, seconded. Deputy Mayor Elliott, all in favor? All right, so I'm going to advise that the written notice of the decision will be forwarded but to designated parties, and there's a 20-day appeal period. And if you wish to be notified of the decision with respect to this application, you must submit a written request to the clerk. The clerk's email address is included on the online agenda. All right. So our next application is a minor variance, A921. The applicant being Dale McGill and Teresa Barsanti McGill. The property location is 4241 Hamilton Road. And I ask the planning director to provide an overview of the application.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is a request for relief from the zoning bylaw to permit an increase in height to an existing detached garage, which is accessory to a residential use, which would otherwise exceed the maximum height requirement. The subject property, it's a residential lot located on the south side of Hamilton Road and east of Queen Street in the village of Dorchester. These lands are designated residential and zoned for residential purposes, and they contain a two-story dwelling, a detached single-car garage, and a shed. The applicants are requesting to increase the height of the detached garage from 4.57 meters, which is 15 feet, to 7.62 meters, which is 25 feet. Whereas the zoning bylaw restricts the height of detached accessory buildings to a maximum height of 5 meters or 16.4 feet. This garage is located at the rear of the property, and the additional height would allow for a workshop and additional storage space, considering the existing dwelling doesn't have a basement, as noted by the applicants. The size of the garage door would generally remain the same, with a second story which would be accessible by an outdoor staircase along the, if I can get my bearings straight, along the east side of the building, the interior side of the property. And there's also a graphic that's attached to my report which illustrates the proposed alteration to the garage. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, and I'm satisfied that the 4 tests of the Planning Act have been met relative to the evaluation of variances. In terms of comments received from the county engineer, the Conservation Authority, the Drainage Superintendent, and Public Works, no issues were identified in the circulation of the report. Also, the chief building official simply notes that compliance with the building of code will of course be required to ensure sufficient spatial separation with the neighboring use. In terms of public comments, to date, I have received no comments from the public, Your Worship. So without further ado, it's my recommendation that the application be granted, subject to the 2 conditions that are noted in my report. The one condition deals with assurances that any downspouts associated with the elevated garage be directed away from the neighboring property at 4237 Hamilton Road to alleviate any potential drainage issues. And then secondly, that the elevated garage be constructed in general conformity with the graphic that's attached to my report, and also subject to the reasons outlined in my report, Your Worship.
Okay,
That is my submission for you. Thank you.
thank you. So do we have the applicants here?
Yes, we do, Your Worship. I'm bringing over Teresa Barsanti McGill.
Thank you.
So Teresa, we'll just get you to unmute yourself. There we go.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Teresa.
Hello, and this is my husband Dale.
Hi, Dale. If there wasn't COVID times, you could have just run right over here. You're just like a stone throw away. Do you have any additional information you'd like to provide?
No, I probably have just a couple of questions. Is the 20-day appeal period, is that for everybody, like, or just us, or are we still waiting 20 days before we can do anything?
It's a standard clause. I think Mark could answer that question.
Yeah, through you, your worship. It's an appeal period that applies to any variance application, and the clock starts once the decision is made. So basically what that means is, should council approve the application, 20 days from now, you'll be eligible to receive a building permit.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have any other comments or questions?
Do we leave the sign on does somebody sign off our lawn, or do we?
Through you, your worship, that's a good question. We will take care of the removal of the sign for you. Thank you.
That's all we had. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Any members of the public in attendance who wish to provide comments?
No, your worship.
Okay, thank you. Any committee members have any questions regarding this application? Nope, seeing none. I'm going to ask the committee to make their decision on the application by resolution. Councillor Patterson moving.
I'll make the move to grant the application for minor variance 89-21, subject to the 2 conditions by the planner for the reasons that the planner explained.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Heeman? All in favor? Okay. So again, I'm going to advise that there's a written notice of the decision, and that'll be forwarded to designated parties, and that there's a 20-day appeal period. If you wish to be notified of the decision with respect to this application, you must submit a written request to the clerk, and the clerk's email address is included on the online agenda. So Dale and Teresa, you don't have to worry about your sign. They'll pick that up, and your 20-day appeal period starts now. So
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. So I'm going to ask for a resolution to adjourn, that the Committee of Adjustment adjourn and reconvene at a public meeting under the Planning Act. Mover, Councillor Heeman, seconded Councillor Hunter. All in favor? All right, so now we're moving on to consent application B621. And the purpose of this public meeting is to consider an application for consent as submitted by the applicant, which is 1404580 Ontario Incorporated, care of John Matthews, and the agent being N Plus Limited. Property location is 2147 Dorchester Road, and I'm going to ask the planning director to provide an overview of the applications, comment received, and planning recommendation.
Thank you, your worship. So with this request for consent, it would pertain to an easement request for the sharing of a private sanitary sewer connection in favor of benefiting vacant lands to the west, known municipally as 100 The Parkway. The subject property, it's a commercial property that contains the Tim Hortons, located at the corner of Dorchester Road and the Parkway in the village of Dorchester. And these lands, along with the adjacent vacant lands to the west, they are owned by the applicant, albeit in different corporate names. Both properties are designated and zoned for commercial purposes. And council will recall that these lands to the west, they were the subject to that variance application with the parking reduction, which was just recently approved. The applicant has also applied for site plan approval to develop that vacant parcel. And the Tim Hortons property would be the servient lands versus the vacant parcel would be the benefiting lands. I should also note, your worship, that originally through the submission of the application, the proposal also included an easement to support a joint access between the Tim Hortons property and the vacant commercial property. So I'm giving a verbal update in regards to that matter should be considered as part of this application. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, and there's certainly policy direction offered by the province and the county, as well as through our local planning document through the official plan, which all allow for the creation of easements, including shared private infrastructure. And certainly what is being proposed here would be in line with that policy direction. As a condition of consent, it would be appropriate to require a reciprocal operating agreement between both property owners to ensure the operation and maintenance of common features, including but not limited to the parking area and access driveways, that sort of thing. In terms of comments received in the circulation of the application, I should note that no issues were identified from circulated agencies, including the county engineer, the conservation authority, our drainage superintendent, our director of public works, our chief building official, Hydro One, as well as Bell Canada. So no issues from any of those parties or individuals. Also, in terms of public comment, I have not received any comments. And so it is my recommendation that the application for consent, with the addition of an easement for joint access purposes, that be approved, subject to the 4 conditions that are outlined in my report, and according to the reasons outlined in my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the applicant or the agent here?
No, Your Worship, there's no one in attendance.
Okay. Any members of the public in attendance?
No, Your Worship.
Okay. Council members, do you have any comments or questions regarding this report? Nope, seeing none. I'm going to advise that the public meeting portion for this application has been completed. I'm going to ask council to make their decision on the application by resolution, considering all comments received. So looking for a mover. Councillor Hunter, seconded by Deputy Mayor Elliott. All in favor? Okay. So I'm going to advise that the written notice of the decision will be forwarded to designated parties, and then there's a 20-day appeal period from the date of decision. If you wish to be notified of the decision with respect to this application, you must submit a written request to the clerk, and the clerk's email address is included on the online agenda. Okay, next we have a public meeting consent application, B721, and the purpose of this public meeting is to consider an application for consent as submitted by the applicant, which is the Canadian National Railway Company, the agent being Denton's Canada LLP, care of Andrea Patterson, and the property location is the south side of Mini Street and west of the CN Railway crossing. So I'm going to ask the planning director to provide an overview of the applications, comments received, and planning recommendation.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So this is an application for consent to sever a vacant parcel of land declared surplus to the needs of the Railway Authority to enlarge an existing industrial use. The subject lands, they form part of CN's active railway corridor that bisects the village of Dorchester. And specifically with this stretch between Mini Street to the east and Richmond Street to the west. CN is seeking consent to sever a portion of the railway corridor bounded by Mini Street to the east, having an area of 0.8 acres, which has been declared surplus to the needs of the operation of related to the Railway Authority. The retained lands would encompass the balance of the railway corridor, which CN is to continue to be used for active rail service. The subject lands, they are designated residential under the official plan, and they're zoned for future development purposes. Furthermore, from a background standpoint, the lands to be conveyed, they are currently being used by an industrial use, namely Lynn Lumber, for storage related to their operation. The lands also have a frontage of approximately 15.2 meters along Mini Street, adjacent to the CNR crossing, which also serves as their driveway access for their operation. Through this consent, the intent is to transfer the lands to be conveyed to Lynn Lumber for lot addition purposes to legitimize the current encroachment onto the CN property. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, as outlined in my report, and there's policy direction offered by the province and the various official plans having jurisdiction, including the counties and Thames centers. They allow lot additions, severances, provided that the conveyed lands are merged in the same name and title as the lands to which they are being added. Although the intent of this proposal is to have the lands to be conveyed added to the Lynn Lumber property, they are physically separated by an unopened road allowance associated with Mini Street, which is owned by the municipality. I should also add, Your Worship, that in considering applications for consent, there's criteria under the Planning Act which applies to draft plans of subdivision along with consents. And the one criterion that I'm having issues with is whether the proposed subdivision or consent in this case is premature or in the public interest. So any consideration of this consent is premature until such time that Lynn Lumber owns abutting lands. And so in the absence of those abutting land ownership, this consent is fundamentally flawed and therefore premature. It's also not in the public interest to presuppose the outcome of Lynn Lumber's acquisition of the adjacent Mini Street unopened road allowance from the municipality, which has not been initiated and would require another municipal process. In the circulation of the application, Your Worship, no issues were identified by a number of agencies, including the county engineer, the Conservation Authority, Enbridge, our drainage superintendent, along with Bell Canada and Hydro One. Our chief building official, he has noted concern about the encroachment of Lynn Lumber onto the Mini Street road allowance. From our public works director, he has noted that in his opinion, this consent is premature, considering the municipality owns the adjoining land, being the road allowance. And at the same time, the unopened road allowance has been identified in the 2019 master servicing plan as the location of a future local infrastructure. In terms of public comments received, Your Worship, I did receive a written submission subsequent to the preparation of my report from a Mr. Barry Hunter on behalf of Clear Blue Farms. He is requesting that council's consideration be deferred due to the water and wastewater servicing master plan showing the unopened road allowance as a servicing corridor that would service vacant lands designated residential to the north. So those implications, in Mr. Hunter's opinion, they should be explored before council renders a decision on this application. So what this all means, Your Worship, my recommendation is that the application as submitted, that it be deferred from any consideration due to the application being premature and not in the public interest in accordance with section 51 sub 24 of the Planning Act, and until such time that Lynn Lumber owns lands adjacent to the lands to be conveyed. I'm here to answer any questions that may be posed. Thank you.
Okay. So do we have the agent available for any additional information?
Yes, we do, Your Worship. I'm bringing over Andrea Patterson.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Patterson.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and members of committee. I'm Andrea Patterson. I'm a land use planner at Denton's. We're acting for CN in this capacity. I guess, first of all, I just want to say that we're in agreement with the recommendation that the application be deferred. And I just do want to clarify that I think Mr. Bancroft was extremely helpful in bringing the situation to light in terms of the existing right of way. And so I just wanted to clarify that it was our understanding and expectation, in fact, that there would be a requirement for those lands to be purchased by Lynn in order to facilitate any lot additions. So I just wanted to make clear, you know, we were sort of just trying to ignore that and say, you know, it's fine, just go ahead. And I wasn't aware of the correspondence from Clear Blue Farm, so I would just ask if I could obtain a copy of that. Maybe I didn't ask sort of close enough to the meeting, but I was trying to monitor the comments.
Great.
But having said that, we're in agreement with the recommendation to defer.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
Any members in the public in attendance?
Yes, Your Worship. I'm bringing over Diana Cherubin by telephone.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Diana. Can you hear me?
Hi, no comments over here. I just followed the link to register to listen.
Perfect, thank you. Any council members have any comments or questions regarding this application? The recommendation? Don't see any. Okay, so, oh, Councillor, sorry, Tom, go ahead.
Just a question through you, Your Worship, to the Director of Planning. I think, like, do you believe there is a workable solution in the future? Because this seems to be an unconventional arrangement.
There could be a solution, but we're not going to know for certain until we have a clear understanding of all the implications. But it's a good question, and there may be an opportunity to reach common ground to make something happen here. Thank you.
There seems to be a lot of common ground already. So I'm going to ask now that the public meeting portion for this application has been completed, and ask the council to make their decision on the application by resolution, considering all comments received. So we have the recommendation for deferral. So Deputy Mayor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Hunter, all in favor? All right. I'm going to advise that the written decision or written notice of the decisions will be forwarded to designated parties, and there's a 20-day appeal period from the date of decision. If you wish to be notified of the decision with respect to this application, you must submit a written request to the clerk, and the clerk's email address is included on the online agenda. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see you in the future, I'm sure. Now we have the public meeting for a zoning application Z321, and that the purpose of this public meeting is to consider a zoning bylaw amendment as submitted by the applicant, being 1541270 Ontario Incorporated, and the agent being Antec Design and Engineering, care of Candace Michuki. The property location is the north side of Dundas Street and west of Fairview Drive. So now I'm going to ask our planning director to provide an overview of application and planning recommendation.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is an application for rezoning, to rezone the subject lands from a highway commercial zone with a holding provision to a site-specific highway commercial zone with a holding provision to permit a number of additional commercial uses. This property, for background, it's 10 acres in size on the north side of Dundas Street, just east of Shaw Road. These lands are designated and zoned for commercial purposes. The holding symbol is to remain until the applicant has entered into a development agreement with the municipality. The specifics involving this rezoning include a number of additional permitted uses being requested, that being a convenience store related to a gas bar, financial institution, personal service establishment, retail store, a pharmacy, a florist shop, a sale and service of recreational vehicles, a shopping center, along with a fitness center. Subsequent to the circulation of the notice of public meeting, the applicant did come back and revise their application in that they will no longer be seeking a shopping center as an additional permitted use. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, and although these lands are situated within a prime agricultural area under the provincial policy statement and they're designated agricultural under the county official plan, these lands do not contemplate the removal of agricultural land since they were previously removed from agriculture from a policy standpoint, given the current highway commercial designation under the Thames Centre official plan. That commercial designation, it recognizes legacy commercial areas that are outside of designated settlement areas that are not on municipal water or sanitary sewers. To go on further about the official plan, it does provide evaluation criteria relative to rezoning requests. And I'm satisfied that that criteria has been met or it is capable of being met, primarily through site plan approval, which will be required for the development of the lands. It would address matters relative to soil and drainage conditions, the siting of buildings, any required road improvements, as well as measures to mitigate any adverse impact on neighboring lands. So in all, this rezoning application would be consistent with provincial policy, and it would conform with the official plans having jurisdiction. Through the circulation of the application, Your Worship, did receive a few comments. No issues were identified by the county engineer, the Conservation Authority, the Director of Public Works, our drainage superintendent. Our chief building official has, however, noted that there are some outstanding bylaw enforcement matters relative to derelict motor vehicles and noxious weeds. And those matters are capable of being addressed through the site plan approval process. In terms of public comments, I did receive a letter of concern from one of the neighboring property owners. I understand that letter is attached to my report from Mr. Floyd Wills. He just wanted to draw the municipality's attention of establishing proper drainage systems before commencement of construction, as he has witnessed some water damage on his adjacent property as a result of excavation that has occurred. He's also noted traffic concerns as a result of the new establishment on this busy stretch of highway. So it's my recommendation, Your Worship, that the application for rezoning as amended, which excludes the shopping center permitted use, that it be approved in principle, and that I be given direction to prepare the bylaw for council's consideration at the next regular meeting, and that no further notice be required as a result of the amended application. I'm here to answer any questions, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, do we have the agent here?
Yes, we do, Your Worship. I'm bringing over Candace Makuchi.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Candace. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I obviously heard what Mr. Bancroft has had to say, and we're in line with exactly what he has said. I do have one quick question. with the holding zone, we don't have to go through the application process again to remove that holding zone. We just have to follow through with the full site plan criteria, correct?
Through you, your worship, there is a nominal fee that you'll have to pay to basically have the holding removed. We give notice to you, and in quick order, through the passing of a bylaw, we can make that holding symbol disappear, essentially, based on a subsequent council approval. Only once site plan approval is granted and once the agreement's registered on title. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other comments, Candace?
No, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Or
Okay, does anybody, any council members have any, oh, actually, do we have any members from the public in attendance who have questions?
Yes, we do, your worship. I'm bringing over Mr. Floyd Wills.
All right.
So Floyd, I'll just ask that you unmute yourself.
There we go.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wills. We meet again.
Good afternoon, Your Worship.
Do you have any comments, questions?
Mr. Bancroft pretty much covered my concerns. This piece of property is one that we used to farm for a number of years. In fact, I guess if you want to do a little history, it was part of our farm at one time. After giving up operation of that piece of property, it changed hands 2 or 3 times. And the last gentleman who owned it prior to this current owner, as Mark mentioned, proceeded to do some excavation for building. We ended up with a flood over onto about 3 or 4 acres of farmland on that east side of the property. It took months, close to a year, to get it cleared up, and no one seemed to be in too big a hurry to fix the problem. And then it's been sort of neglected ever since. It's quite a jungle of weeds and ditches and so on. So anyway, I guess my only worry about it is that there would be much needed supervision of this process, because it hasn't been supervised very well. The bylaw officers attempted to make efforts to correct the problems, but nothing seemed to be done. So I think, the council needs to insist that the bylaw officers, ride herd on this piece of property and make sure it's cleared up properly. The drainage would need to probably mean a branch into a municipal drain, which passes through our farm next to that field. That will mean cutting through our place to attach to that municipal drain. That would be where the connection would be made. And again, if it isn't done ahead of time, we're going to be into the same mess as we've been into. So I think it needs to have an outlet obtained and drainage attached into it before the construction begins. And the location of the entrance onto the highway is going to be really tricky, because that's a busy corner, combining it with Trails End and Snowline snowmobiles and a couple of residences on that spot. And the narrowing of the highway down from 4 lanes to 2 creates also issues in terms of getting on and off, especially making left turns into and out of that property. So I think, there needs to be some pretty close supervision of how that takes place. I'm a little concerned about the safety factor there.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Wills.
Thank you.
Any council members have any comments or questions? Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, to Director Bancroft, I'm just curious with the number of requested uses and with the withdrawal of a shopping complex, how do you have any indication of, when you have more than one, is there going to be a settling on one specific use, or is there multiple uses and separate parcels? Because that kind of sounds like a shopping center without the name. But again, bow to your greater expertise on that.
Through you, your worship, although an application for site plan approval has not been applied for, a concept plan was included as part of this application submission for rezoning. So it's my understanding that the property will include a number of commercial uses. And of course, that will be subject to site plan approval to deal with a number of matters, including further to Mr. Wills's concerns, drainage and access. We'll need to make sure that the site plan agreement, or I should say the plan submitted, that they meet our parameters relative to sign off from the county engineer from an access standpoint, and the drainage superintendent for the municipality from a drainage standpoint. On top of all that, there would be a need for adequate security to be provided to ensure due performance in terms of meeting those obligations under the agreement. Kind of a long-winded answer to your question, Councillor Heeman, but I think it answers it. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Elliott.
Yes, Your Worship, and more just a comment. I know this past couple months when the traffic light study from the County of Middlesex came to County Council, Nisery and Dundas was left off it. I think much to the residents around us, they're concerned that that's not being considered for a traffic light. And I did bring to the county engineer's attention that because that light and that intersection is very difficult, there's a lot of traffic brought off of Nisery Road onto Fairview to make those left-hand turns onto Dundas Street. And so possibly just a comment to Director Bancroft is that when we're looking at the access points to this application, that perhaps the county engineer can relook at the traffic light situation at Nisery and Dundas, as this will bring significantly more traffic and difficulty turning onto Dundas, especially in between Fairview and Nisery.
And just, I just want to confirm to you, to the Director of Planning, the concerns that Mr. Wills brought forward, those will be answered in the site plan agreement. Is that what you were saying? Okay.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Any other comments, Council? Okay. So I'm going to advise that the public meeting portion of this application has been completed. Oh, Tom, sorry. You got a white hand against a white wall and I keep missing it.
Yeah. I was just wondering if there's any interim solution if this isn't on. I understand that we can regulate these potential concerns through site plan, but if this is a pre-existing issue, and I think it's a little bit of a gray area, whereas, you know, a petition to the Drainage Act might not be necessary, but is there some way to ensure some relief from the economic impact to the neighboring property in the short term?
So are you talking about the piles of dirt or like the flooding? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. So.
Your Worship, I think, I don't want to speak for Mr. Wills, but I'm assuming that the concerns that have been raised, the issues that have occurred in the past were as a result of activities from the previous property owner. So that previous property owner is no longer in the picture, considering the lands have been acquired by the agent's client. And with that being said, the current owner has full intent of developing these lands for commercial purposes. And again, through the site plan approval process, I'm confident that these issues will be capable of being addressed. Thank you.
Councillor Heeman, is that satisfactory?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay, so I'm going to advise that the public meeting portion for this application has been completed, and I'm going to ask council to make their decision on the application by resolution, considering all comments received. And we have a recommendation in front of us, council. Deputy Mayor Elliott move. Seconder, Councillor Hunter. All in favor? Okay. So I'm going to advise that the written notice of the decision will be forwarded to designated parties, and there's a 20-day appeal period from that date of decision. If you wish to be notified of this decision with respect to this application, you must submit a written request to the clerk, and the clerk's email address is included on the online agenda. Thank you. Thank you, Candace, for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Wills. Nice seeing you.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye. Now we have a public meeting for zoning application Z421, and the purpose of this public meeting is to consider a zoning bylaw amendment as submitted by Curtis and Aaron Gartley. The property location being 5673 Cobble Hills Road. And I'm going to ask the planning director to provide an overview of the application and planning recommendation.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is an application for rezoning for temporary use purposes. To permit the continued occupancy of an existing dwelling on the property for up to 3 years while a new dwelling is being constructed. The property, it's a 100-acre farm on the west side of Cobble Hills Road and on the east side of Cherry Hill Road. The lands are used for agricultural purposes and contain farm-related buildings along with a single detached dwelling, along with a derelict motorhome to be removed. These lands are designated and zoned for farming purposes. They're also designated environmental area and zone environmental protection, EP, recognizing that there's some existing natural heritage features on the property associated with the Wabano Creek, which makes its way through the farm. So the applicants, they are proposing to construct a single detached dwelling while retaining the existing dwelling. Within 3 years of the new dwelling being constructed, the applicant intends to remove the existing dwelling. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, and there's policy direction offered by our official plan, which allows these situations subject to criteria. And I'm satisfied that that criteria has been met, in particular considering the applicant has entered into an agreement with the municipality, which is included as part of this agenda this afternoon for council's consideration. Based on all that, I'm satisfied that this proposal is consistent with provincial policy and it's in conformity with our official plan. In terms of comments received in the circulation of the application, no issues identified by the county engineer, our chief building official, or our drainage superintendent, and also from our director of public works. I should note that we did receive correspondence from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, and they've noted that the new residence, as requested, was to be set back only 15 meters from the closest part of the woodlot, which was concerning. And they strongly encouraged the applicant to meet the required 30-meter setback from the woodlot to waive the need for an environmental impact study. Upon the applicants receiving that correspondence, the Gartleys are willing to meet the required 30-meter setback, which would be addressed through the building permit process. No comments were received from the public, Your Worship, to date. So it is my recommendation that the rezoning application be approved in principle, subject to a maximum of 3 years, and that the zoning bylaw amendment be passed later on in this evening's meeting. Thank you.
Okay, do we have the applicant with us, Sarah?
Yes, we do, Your Worship. I'm bringing over both Aaron and Curtis Gartley.
Great. Great, so welcome Curtis and welcome Aaron.
Hello.
Hello. Do you have any additional information you'd like to provide?
Just ready to get started. Excited to build a new house.
I don't blame you. Sounds like fun. Any members of the public in attendance who have questions?
No, Your Worship.
Okay. Any council members have any comments or questions? Nope, seeing none. Okay, I'm going to advise that the public meeting portion for this application has been completed. I'm going to ask council to make their decision on the application by resolution, considering all comments received. Deputy Mayor Elliott made, seconded by Councillor Hunter. All in favor? Okay, and I'm going to advise that the written notice of the decision will be forwarded to designated parties and that there's a 20-day appeal period from the date of decision. If you wish to be notified of this decision with respect to this application, you must submit a written request to the clerk, and the clerk's email address is included on the online agenda. All right, so thank you for coming forward, everybody, Curtis and Aaron, and somebody else there with you too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So now, council, I'm going to ask for a resolution to adjourn, that the public meeting adjourn and the council reconvene its regular meeting in order to continue with its deliberations. Deputy Mayor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Hunter. All in favor? Okay. And Tom's back with us. There we go. All right, number 8.1, PDS 02821, which is the Dorchester Community Park. Potential disposition of gravel parking lot, municipal survey results, and community feedback. Whose report is this?
Mine, Your Worship.
Oh, there you go. You're still there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. So the purpose of this report was to provide a summary of the municipal survey results and community feedback. And so in terms of background, there was a resolution that was passed by council at the March 8th meeting, and there were 3 parts associated with that resolution. The first part was that those lands be declared surplus to the needs of the municipality. Secondly, that council direct staff to give notice to dispose of the subject property, or intent of disposal, I should say. And thirdly, that staff be directed to prepare a survey and media plan for public feedback as part of that notice. So following that direction from council, notice was given, and as well, staff did circulate a survey to the community to facilitate feedback. So we have the survey results, and those are all appended to my report, including the comments received. But I just wanted to highlight on a couple of key observations for council's consideration or convenience. So a total of 509 responses were received. 85% of those who responded supported maintaining the status quo with the parking lot being retained by the municipality. And also over 60% viewed community benefit as a significant need in considering the future use of the lands. So also we received numerous written submissions. So those are appended to my report. Also, there were a number of phone calls that were received by staff that offered a response as well, that with the view that the parking lot be retained by the municipality. As part of this process, we did receive a proposal to redevelop the subject lands for municipal purposes, to create a park in the form of a playground and gathering place to foster inclusivity and accessibility. This proposal will be considered at a future meeting of council through the Director of Community Services and Facilities. So other than that, Your Worship, it's my recommendation that the report be received, that new information in the form of the survey results and public feedback be received, that part 1 of the resolution declaring the gravel parking lot surplus to the needs of the municipality be rescinded as this foregoing new information has been received. And then lastly, that the parking lot continue to be used for municipal purposes under the ownership of the municipality, considering the concerns raised by the public based on the survey results and public feedback. I'm here to answer any questions which may be posed, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And no, it was certainly an issue where we did hear from the public, and that was the purpose of this. And you know, I did appreciate a lot of the comments and phone calls I got from people. There was some really good conversations, and it certainly was a good conversation with most people. So I'm going to ask council now, looking for a mover. Okay, Councillor Patterson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Elliott. Any comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Elliott. Yep.
Yes, through your worship. I just had a few comments. I just want to say I'm surprised and blown away at the amount of engagement we received regarding this piece of land. And I know that the conversations and the submissions that the public have sparked a lot of new ideas and opportunities that, as Director Bancroft had mentioned, we will have the opportunity to explore at future meetings. After approving the Thames Centre strategic plan at our last meeting, council will remember over the last 2 years, we've had rather extensive discussions over the needs of our community, envisioning what it looks like now, in a year from now, and even 5 to 10 years from now. We have to be progressive in knowing that our community around us is changing, and whether we like it or not. But we also have to remember that that doesn't necessarily mean just in growth. It can be about our demographics and an aging population versus young families, changes in the industry and businesses, and just the society as a whole. For example, during the first council meetings of Thames Centre 20 years ago, there would have never been the advocacy for daycare facilities, broadband fiber installation, or COVID recovery, but here we are today, and that's just the way of the times. I can only speak for myself, but taking every opportunity we can to engage with the public and gather their input is valuable. It keeps us on track as to if we are making the right decisions and viewing every opportunity with as many lenses as we can. I don't sit in this chair with the assumptions that I know everything, nor do I know what is absolutely best for our community on my own. Someone will have an idea of something we could do better and that I would have never thought of. To have the ability to take those suggestions, ideas, and concerns and bring them to this horseshoe is what makes us a better and stronger council. I personally saw this process, albeit not a perfect one, to take the opportunity to harness the public and let their imaginations run free. At the end of the day, there was a motion that was made to review this matter, and this council never committed to one decision or another. However, despite council's decision to investigate options for this community, this resolution was not presented to the residents in a united format. Social media erupted featuring tactics of fear-mongering. These actions manipulated the discussion on social media, and it was disappointing to see what could have been a healthy, productive conversation turn into an automatic defensive beginning. I adamantly believe this was a disadvantage for the conversations and allowed rumors that challenged the integrity of council members, including myself, to spread like wildfire. It is difficult to comprehend why members of the public would feel the need to private message me comments and ideas in respect to this land, as they were afraid to post them publicly for fear of public backlash. This is not how public engagement should work. And for those who participated, it does not show any leadership of any kind when you use positions of respect to, whether intentionally or not, put fear into others that they can't even share their own ideas. Resolutions of council are defined as a decision to move forward in a united format despite the vote split or lack of attendance. It is not designed to purposely and maliciously undermine others for their own agendas. With that being said, I've publicly said I would base my decision on the feedback that we received from this engagement and what is best for our community, and why I'm supporting staff's recommendation. It has been pointed out overwhelmingly that we need parking here, and that has never been up for debate. I do believe after reading the engagement that this space is underutilized and the fact that even the parking could be done better, and possibly looking at properly paving and marking the lot, which could be used for other purposes. There were amazing ideas that came out of this process, and I know they're not lost on me, and I hope that they're not lost on others on the screen. We always should be looking at ways to make our community a better place and best serve our residents, and there are ways to do that when you read through and listen to our community members. I just want to take the time to thank everyone in the public who took the time to have meaningful discussions and share their ideas, hopes, dreams, and inspirations in a respectful manner. Amidst all of the negativity and name calling that can sometimes be overpowering, it is that dialogue that will shape our community for the better and have lasting impact. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions, council? Seeing none, we've got a mover and a, oh, Tom, sorry, I keep missing you, Tom. Apologize for that.
It's okay. Yeah, and again, I don't think this process has been easy for anybody, and I would just like to exercise my appreciation for staff for compiling all of this feedback. And again, council did do this process and enter into this process to legitimately get public feedback, and I think we've been presented with a very well curated form of that. And I only wish this was just a little bit more comfortable process for all people involved. I know it's been stressful for the community, and I think that again, as Deputy Mayor Elliott said, that I think everybody had the best of intentions in going into this, and truly looking at the best outcome for the community. And so I think that we've been clear in identifying that we're basing our decision based on public feedback, and I think that the public's faith in the system is definitely in this case, depending on the will of council, but I believe that faith will be rewarded. And again, it's not it certainly wasn't an easy process for anybody involved, but this is about legitimately looking at our resources and coming up with the best option for the community. So thank you to staff and to the rest of the community.
Any other comments or questions? No. All right then. So we've got a mover and a seconder, and then call the vote. So we're looking at these recommendations. All in favor? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have one recommended motion that the regular meeting minutes of April 12th, 2021 be adopted as circulated, and that consent agenda 9.2 be received and filed. Consent agenda 9.2 is a municipal property assessment corporation. And if anybody out there in YouTube land wants to learn more than they'd ever want to know about Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, I would advise you to look it up. It's a very interesting report. And all kidding aside, it is interesting. So looking for a mover for the consent agenda. Councillor Hunter, seconded by Councillor Patterson. All in favor? Okay. So now we have some unfinished business, which is the municipal slogan visioning session, which looks like it says it's April 12th, 2021. So everybody start thinking about your slogans. And notice of motion at council. Seeing none. New business. CEO Henry, did you have new business?
I do. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just taking this opportunity as it's the first one been available in respect to the OPP and the Detachment Police Services Boards. As council is aware, we have a police services board. We are the only community that has a police services board in the county, and these boards are going detachment wide. So we have been in some preliminary discussions with some of my counterparts throughout the county, trying to establish what a makeup of a new board would look like. And currently, we're in a little bit of a standstill in determining the representation for each of those boards, and that will be a political representative and based on the number of political representatives, that will factor into the community representatives, which is 20% of those amounts. And then, of course, the 2 provincial appointees to that board. Right now, we're waiting on our friends at First Nations to come back to see if they are going to join us in the Middlesex County-wide board and or go on their own as they have the option to do so. This is the best opportunity to come forward and give you a quick update on what's going on. We met with the Solicitor General's office on Thursday afternoon, and they've given us sort of a preliminary date of June 7th to come back with some form of structure of what this may look like from our perspective. That date we found out is not hard and fast, and they may be giving us a bit more time to have some discussion. So I ask council's patience in me coming back with a more formal report at a future date in respect to this matter.
Thanks, Mike. And moving, any questions about that, anybody? That'll all come out in the wash as we go along, I'm sure. Now, we don't have a closed session. Bylaws, I know that there's a conflict for 14.3. So I'll just go ahead and we'll pull 14.3 out of it. So we'll read pretty well, the recommended motion that bylaws 12.20, 21 and 13.21 giving a third reading and adopted. And then we have recommended motion that bylaws 29.21. Just want to make sure I don't get this one in here. I'm going to take that one out. 34.21, 35.2021, and 36.21 be adopted as presented. And then bylaw 12.21 being a bylaw to provide for drainage works, Peterson Drain Reassessment 2020. Bylaw 13/2021 being a bylaw to provide for drainage works, Fairview subdivision, which is third and final reading. Skipping 14.3, moving on to 14.4, which is bylaw 34/2021 being a bylaw to authorize temporary use agreement for 5673 Cobble Hills Road. And then bylaw 35/2021 being a bylaw with respect to a zoning bylaw amendment relating to lands located at 5673 Cobble Hills Road. And then 14.6 is bylaw 36/2021 being confirmatory bylaw. 35/2021 as well? Okay, sorry, Tom, I missed that. All right, so we're going to take
That's
that
my
one
fault.
out. That's okay, we're going to take that one out. So we're only voting on the ones that we listed, not 29/2021 and 35/21. Okay, so, phew, I need a mover for that. Deputy Mayor Elliott, seconded by. Great, Councillor Hunter, all in favor? Okay, and then moving on to bylaws 29/21 and 35/2021, which I believe Councillor Patterson and Councillor Heeman have declared a conflict on both one of them, and then Councillor Heeman on one of them, right? Yep. Okay. Is that correct?
Mayor, I'm just bylaw 29/20.
Yep, that's good. Yep, just one for you and two for Tom. Okay, so it's just us three now, guys, that can vote on this. So Councillor Hunter's making that recommendation, seconded by Deputy Mayor Elliott. All in favor? Great. So now we're moving up. Everybody can get back on screen. We're all done with that. Tom, oh yeah, okay. And now we're gonna go for 35/2021, which Tom, you're not allowed to do. And a mover for that. Great. Councillor Patterson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Elliott. All in favor? All right. And Tom, you can come back. So our meeting schedule, Monday, May 10th, 2021 at 1 p.m. And now, Council, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn at, looks like 6 or 6:19. Councillor Hunter, seconded by Deputy Mayor Elliott. All in favor? Great. Thank you and good night.